Everyone thinks of Alexander the Great's army as the most loyal fighting force in history, following their king to the ends of the known world. But what if I told you that's only half the story? In 324 BC, these same legendary veterans staged a full-blown mutiny. They didn't just disagree with him, they openly defied him, mocked him, and threatened to abandon him. It was a crisis that could have shattered his empire. And Alexander's response wasn't a battle plan, it was a speech. A speech so emotionally devastating, it turned an army of rebels back into devoted followers. But was it truly heartfelt, or was it the single greatest act of manipulation in ancient history? In the summer of 324 BC, the Macedonian army was camped at Opis, a city near modern-day Baghdad. They were done. After more than a decade of brutal campaigning, from Greece to India, they were exhausted, scarred, and homesick. They had conquered the Persian Empire and made their king the most powerful man in the world. Now they just wanted to go home. Alexander gathered his men and made an announcement he thought they'd celebrate. He was sending the old, the wounded, and the weary veterans back to Macedonia. They would be discharged with honor, showered with riches, and hailed as heroes. But the army didn't hear it that way. To their ears, this wasn't an honorable discharge, it was a rejection. They saw Alexander embracing Persian customs, wearing Persian clothes, and even training thousands of young Persian soldiers in the Macedonian style. They felt they were being replaced. The respect they had earned with their blood was being given away to their former enemies. The simmering resentment boiled over. The soldiers began to shout, mocking Alexander. One voice rose above the rest, telling him to discharge everyone and go fight his future campaigns with his father, a sarcastic reference to the god Ammon, whose son Alexander claimed to be. This was the ultimate insult, questioning both his leadership and his divine heritage. Alexander was not a man who tolerated disrespect. Enraged, he leaped from the speaker's platform directly into the crowd. With his own hands, he pointed out the loudest of the dissenters. His bodyguards seized 13 of them and dragged them away to be executed on the spot. A stunned, terrifying silence fell over the thousands of soldiers. Then, Alexander returned to the platform and began to speak. He didn't start with threats, he started with their past. He reminded them of his father, Philip II, and what they were before him. He painted a picture of a life of poverty and struggle in the mountains of Macedonia. Your fathers, he said, were nomads and shepherds, wearing animal skins, constantly fighting for your very survival against your neighbors. He reminded them that before Philip, they were a broken people, not an army. Then he shifted focus to what they had become under his leadership. He detailed the transformation from poor shepherds to the undisputed masters of a global empire. I have made you satraps, he declared. I have made you generals. I have filled your houses with treasure. He wasn't just their king, he was their benefactor, the architect of their entire reality. He had given them everything, and he reminded them that he had never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He didn't lead from the rear, he led from the very front of the charge. He gestured to his own body, a roadmap of scars from swords, arrows, and stones. There is no part of my body that is without a wound, he told them, and all of them were earned for you, for your glory and your wealth. This was the emotional core of his argument. He had bled with them, suffered with them, and triumphed with them. He had shared every danger and every reward. He wasn't just a king giving orders, he was a comrade who had earned his position through shared sacrifice. How could they now abandon him? Then came the masterstroke. He took their own insult and turned it back on them like a dagger. Go now, he shouted. Go home and tell them that you deserted your king, Alexander, and left him in the care of the foreigners you conquered. With that, he turned his back on them, strode to his tent, and sealed himself inside. For 2 days, he refused to see anyone. He was giving his men the very thing they thought they wanted, a world without him. On the third day, he summoned the newly trained Persian commanders, promoting them and forming new Persian regiments with Macedonian names, the ultimate sign that he was moving on without his original army. The effect was devastating. The Macedonian veterans, left outside his tent, were completely broken. The silence from their king was worse than any punishment. They were overcome with shame and grief. They threw their weapons down and gathered at his tent, weeping, begging to be let in, promising to hand over the men who had started the mutiny. They didn't want to go home anymore, they just wanted their king back. Finally, Alexander emerged. Seeing their genuine remorse, he too was moved to tears. What followed was a massive feast of reconciliation, where Macedonians and Persians sat side by side, drinking from the same cup, celebrating not as conquerors and conquered, but as subjects of the same empire, united by one man. The mutiny was over. So was Alexander's speech a heartfelt plea from a betrayed father figure, genuinely wounded by the men he considered his family? Or was it a calculated masterclass in psychological manipulation designed to shatter their morale and reassert his absolute authority? Let me know which side of that line you think he falls on in the comments below.